Good evening. Good evening, good cold rainy evening. Let me call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of St. Helena for November 27th, 2018. Ms. Koberstein, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Galbraith,
Here.
Vice Mayor White,
Here.
Councilmember Doring,
Here.
Ellsworth,
Here.
Koberstein.
Here.
The next item on our agenda is public forum. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address us with respect to matters of municipal concern that are not on our agenda, and public comment at public forum is limited to 4 minutes. Does anybody wish to speak at public forum?
My name is Ann Carr, 1730 Dean York Lane in St. Helena. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to our mayor, Alan Galbraith, for his service to the town. Your time and your energy. You've been indefatigable representing the town at markets, parades, services, not to mention all the meetings and discussions, and we wish you a well-deserved rest. Glenn and I do.
Thank you.
Also, thank you to Peter for your service as well. Yeah. And congratulations to Jeff, who has already served St. Helena with generous energy and creativity. We are fortunate that those qualities will guide us in the future.
Thank you.
And congratulations to Paul and Anna. A hard-fought race. I would like to address the needs of the victims of the Camp Fire. I know that there is a plethora of opportunities to donate both money and items, and Glenn and I have done so. And I imagine many short-term needs are being met. I'm concerned about the long-term needs of those folks who have lost their homes, and probably many of them any hope of ever having a home again. And I would like to see the St. Helena have a fund drive to raise money to buy one trailer or RV from a sales lot. There are tons of RVs and trailers on sales lots everywhere. And donate it to pleasure? Well, paradise. I would gladly help with this project, but I would hope it would bear the seal of approval of the City Council and inspire other California cities and towns to follow suit. If you think this is a good idea, would a resolution of the City Council be enough to jumpstart a citywide drive? I don't know where to begin, but it seemed like a good place to start. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I just add, could we agendize that for the next meeting, the 11th?
Well, Glenn Smith, the other half of the Dean York Lane contingent.
I'm actually representing Susan Davis, Birch Street, St. Helena. She is not available tonight and asked me to represent her, but I endorse her comments, and I'm actually paraphrasing them, so to some extent these are in my own words. I want to propose that we want to propose that the City Council consider eliminating the position of mayor as an elected position, and that the City Council select the mayor from its own membership. This proposal is presented for the following reasons. The most recent election involved many letters to the editor that attacked the commitment, experience, and character of both candidates in inappropriate ways. This does not serve our city and its citizens well, or honor the willingness of the candidates to commit their energies to serve our city. Also, the money spent on this campaign, as reported in the Star, seems out of proportion for a community election. Our community could also experience a reduction in mailers, yard signs, and other materials destined for recycling. The council members acknowledge or have knowledge of the skills, temperament, and commitment of each elected representative, and that would help them to select the most qualified member of their body to serve as mayor. The position of mayor could be a 2-year term between the election cycles, or it could be more frequently rotated, like on an annual basis. Many cities use this approach. I know the city of Novato does, and I think it would bear discussion by the council and the city administration to see whether this alternative form might well serve the city. Thank you.
And I tend to agree with you, quite
you.
frankly. Further public comment? All right. Reports by staff and city council, future agenda items, and AB 1234 reports. Let me start with the city manager. Let me start with the city attorney.
I can only report that the city council did meet this afternoon in closed session to discuss the items designated on the closed session agenda for this afternoon. No reportable actions were taken.
All right. City manager, Mr. Prestwich.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder that this Saturday we will be transforming Lyman Park into Jingle All the Way. Tents and other amenities are being added to the park. Were added to the park today. That will continue through the remainder of the week. We've hired some young staff to assist us with the event, and they'll be starting on Saturday. Everyone will be there to greet them. And so we're encouraging the community to participate in this event through the month of December. There is a link on our website, and also you can visit www.St. Helena Jingle All the Way. Secondly, I've asked the city clerk to bring up the city webpage, and on this, what we've added is an emergency preparedness link to the front page of the website that was not there before. And if you click that button, what it does is it takes you to a page with a variety of one-click options related to staying informed. That really relates to communications, media. We have built links in under that particular button. I wanted to raise awareness of, in the interim between now and the next council meeting, there is a link related to donations. This is a special link for those that are interested in contributing contributions or donations to victims of the Camp Wildfire. So that button is specific to the Camp Wildfire and will be removed at a later date. We have links to air quality, making a plan, and different types of emergencies that tend to visit our valley. So wanted to raise awareness of this. And then finally, I would like to request the council add an item to this evening's agenda, and that is an item that came to my attention today related to just a further review of the insurance for this Jingle All the Way event. And so upon additional review, the chamber has requested that we consider adding them as an additional insured specifically for this event. We've had some discussions with our insurance carrier, and that's permissible, but it requires an amendment to our contract. And we've distributed a staff report related to that. Adding this item to the agenda requires a 4/5 vote. And what I would request is that we, in the action, that we also ask that it be in a form, the amendment would be written in a form that's acceptable to the city attorney.
All right. Is the proper way to proceed here to see whether we have a 4/5 vote and then add it as 8.9 to the consent calendar?
So yes, that would be, but the council would need to, as part of that motion, first it would be first the motion to add this item to the consent agenda. That would require findings by the council by a 4/5 vote of two things. One, that there is a need for immediate action, and two, that the need arose after the posting of the agenda for tonight's meeting. In my view, both of those findings can be made factually, and so, but that would be the first step for you to do. And then the second step would be to, if it's the council's direction, approve the item on the consent agenda.
Well, let's talk about the first step. Is there any public comment with respect to it? Seeing none, is there any council discussion? Otherwise, is there a motion to add this item to as 8.9 to the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor White?
Yes.
Councilmember Koberstein?
Yes.
Ellsworth?
Yes.
Doring?
Yes.
Mayor Galbraith?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Ms. Mitz? City Clerk? No? Ms. Smithies?
It up again. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to update everyone on the Mitchell Drive Oak Avenue closure. Some of you that got the mixed report and those who haven't, yesterday we identified a storm drainage issue on the backside of Sunshine Market. It was identified as a crack in the pipe earlier this year during when construction started on the development at the Sunshine Marketplace, but we didn't know how severe it was until the flooding started happening at the site yesterday. And our staff worked through the night, through 4 a.m., took some breaks, got back out there to get it again to try to bridge it until they can get a temporary fix in there, until they can fully replace it, similar to Tainter earlier this year. So they think they had it about this afternoon, but the road's still closed until they can backfill and safe it off in addition. So hopefully that happens tomorrow. They worked around the clock, our guys, so they did a good job.
Is that the old corrugated pipe from the 1930s?
This one's clay.
Oh,
So-
clay. Oh, my goodness.
So we may be coming back in the future with the CIP project to slip line that portion of pipe until we can fully replace it.
All right. Wow. Okay, Mr. Hausch?
Thank you, Mayor Galbraith and Council. Just wanted to remind the community that on December 4th, 1 week from today, staff is holding a public hearing with the Planning Commission to accept comments on the General Plan EIR. I would encourage everyone to read that document, come comment. Otherwise, you can provide your comments in writing by January 2nd. That is the closing of the comment period. And comments provided in writing are to be directed to me, and my contact information is available on the website. Or if you'd rather give them in person, you can come speak directly to the Planning Commission next Tuesday here, starting at 6 p.m.
All right. Do I see Mr. Pitchley back there?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and members of the community. This Friday, we will have Home for the Holidays, which will be our inaugural tree lighting that'll take place out in front of the Carnegie Building. We expect the crowds to start showing up around 5:30. The program will begin at 6. I have it on good authority that Santa will be there, and he will be arriving by fire truck to help light the holiday tree that we'll have out in front of Carnegie. Afterwards, we're going to invite everybody in after the tree lighting to come on inside the Carnegie Building, where we'll have cocktail tables set up. Cliff Family Winery and Acacia House will be there serving small bites and pouring some wine. There'll be some cookie decorating for the kids. Santa will be visiting with kids of all ages, and we will have live music there from the St. Helena High School Jazz Band. They will be accepting donations as they're going to be doing a trip to New York, where they'll be competing at Carnegie Hall. And we expect the event to go till about 8 or 8:30, and so we're inviting everybody from the community to come on out for this free event.
Okay, terrific. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Doring, Mr. White, Ms. Koberstein.
I just want to say a little bit more about Jingle All the Way and acknowledge the work of our staff and the Chamber of Commerce and volunteers in the community. This was sort of a blended idea that came together through private citizen, Mariana Hawkins, started working with the Chamber of Commerce, including Amy, and then the city stepped in, Mark, with a lot of assistance from the Public Works Department, particularly right now, and also the Recreation Department, Andre and Stephanie. And Rebecca Weeman showed up about a month ago, and she's done some amazing things. Jeff and I sit there and kind of listen and encourage, but this is a great public-private partnership event. And after you go to Home for the Holidays, you should walk over to Lyman Park. The last person I want to acknowledge is Rob Smith, who is designing this whole thing and promises that it's going to be a spectacular show of lights and flock trees and who knows what else. So thank you very much.
Good. Mr. Ellsworth?
Excuse me. I wanted to take a minute to say thank you to all of our staff and employees who've been doing an amazing job. We have so many things going on, and the focus and attention and persistence and diligence is appreciated. And so I just want to say that, and then I want to say a special thank you to the Public Works Department. This morning, seeing the crews out early in the morning, in the middle of the day, dealing with these water issues, and then tonight it was dark and raining, and they were setting up holiday lights. It was pretty remarkable. So I just want to put that thank you out there.
Very good. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. I don't have anything. I certainly echo Mr. Ellsworth's comments. Let's see. That then takes us to presentations and public recognitions. Mr. Paydar is not with us this evening, so that takes us to 6.2, and we'll hear from Mr. Hardy, Chair of the Planning Commission.
Put the 4-minute buzzer
Thank you, Mayor Galbraith, members of the City Council. So I'm here, as I understand it, to present a report on the work of the Planning Commission over the last year. In preparation for this, I reviewed all of our agendas and minutes from the beginning of 2018. We met 19 times. Overall, I would say it was a remarkably non-turbulent year of work in the Planning Commission. I've been around long enough to know that is probably not typical. Our agendas were taken up largely, especially in terms of public hearings and other action items on consent with residential design review. We had some commercial use permits and related projects and a few miscellaneous items. There were inevitably some projects that drew intense and focused comments and objections from neighbors, but nothing of widespread controversy. Along the way, thanks to the efforts of staff, we were able to make steady progress on a number of projects at direction of council involving work on our zoning ordinance, and we reviewed and submitted to the council revisions to the sign ordinance, to our design review ordinance, to the list of permitted and conditional uses for the central business district and service commercial zoning, and also a temporary use section for the ordinance. Next year, I think I can safely predict, given that our general plan and general plan EIR are in the public comment period right now, and the first hearing at the Planning Commission will be at our first meeting in December. We're going to have a much more intensive kind of agenda, more typically than we have in the past year. It's always difficult to know when any particular project will reach the public hearing stage, but I know we have a number of significant projects besides the general plan itself coming our way. And all of this reminds me that although I think it's easy to forget, in addition to the physical infrastructure that requires the attention of the city, we have a kind of invisible or intangible infrastructure. I sometimes refer to it as the administrative infrastructure that also requires maintenance and attention in order for the work, the business of the city to go well. For the planning department and the commission, the thing that comes immediately to mind is our zoning ordinance, which has not had any major update now for something more than 20 years. I think the last comprehensive update was adopted in 1996, but I could be wrong about the exact year. And this is one of the things that we bump up against on a fairly routine basis just in the course of the work we do at the Planning Commission, sections of the ordinance that are difficult to interpret in today's world, that don't seem to make sense any longer, or that perhaps weren't so well drafted to begin with. Other areas where things are clearly out of step with current law, and frankly, the whole ordinance needs a comprehensive update, and that will require a significant commitment on the part of the city. And I want to encourage you to be there for the commission when that time comes, because it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of staff time, and it will, I'm afraid, probably be expensive as well. The other thing that I believe is sometimes overlooked is what I, by analogy, think of as deferred maintenance on the staffing side of things. Planning department was significantly understaffed for a number of years during and in the wake of the recent major recession. And one of the things I know that happens, and I'm sure it's not limited to the planning department, is fundamental things get neglected. The whole business of record keeping and organizing things gets behind, and it's very, very difficult to catch up. So I want to encourage you to think about not just the resources needed to take care of our ongoing and current business, but also the fact that we have a lot of deferred maintenance in this administrative infrastructure, and it adds time and expense to everything that we do on an ongoing basis. So I look forward to working with you all to keep all of this moving forward, to tackle the land use matters that will come before us, the policies for which the Commission is charged with providing recommendations and comments to the Council. And I'm looking forward to a very happy new year. Thank you.
Good. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Lester.
Mr. Hardy.
Thank you for your service to the community, Lester.
All right, that takes us to the consent calendar. I will pull 8.7, which relates to the SRO. Does any council member wish to pull any other item?
Mr. Mayor, we'd like to pull item 8.2.
8.2.
It will not be heard this evening.
Oh, all right. Yes, which item would you like pulled? Yeah. All right. All right, so at this time, the chair would accept a motion to approve on consent 8.1, 8.5,
Or 8.3?
oh, excuse me, 8.3, yeah, 8.5, 8.6, and 8.9, that being the matter that we added by 4/5 vote earlier, dealing with the insureds.
Did you say 8.6 and 8.6 was pulled, and what about
Yeah.
8.8?
8.6 was pulled?
Yeah.
Well, let me do it again. Sorry about that. On consent, 8.1, 8.3, 8.5, and 8.9.
8.8?
And 8.8.
8.8 was pulled.
Oh,
Was it?
was it?
I thought,
No, I don't think so.
no, or maybe I misheard. All right.
So 8.8
8.8
and 8.9.
and 8.9.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooperstein?
Yes.
Ellsworth?
Yes.
Doring?
Yes.
Mayor Galbraith?
Yes.
Okay, so the first one.
All right, so that takes us back to
8.4.
8.4.
Thank you, Mayor Galbraith, members of the council. 8.4 is a report on the compliance with Caltrans lawsuit settlement and a determination by the planning director that no additional payments or project approvals are necessary to meet the milestones identified in this agreement. You'll recall the council recently requested an update on this just as a part of the normal business to find out where we are with the status. City planning staff worked with the city attorney to analyze the requirements of the settlement and provide the report that identifies where we are with that. Just for some brief background, the city was sued in 2013 related to some affordable housing issues and code enforcement, which resulted in a number of families being displaced from a home. The city in 2014 entered into a settlement agreement with regards to that. That settlement agreement identified a number of stipulations that the city was going to be required to meet. Primarily along the lines of a number of benchmarks that were measured against the timeline, and these required either the payment of funds into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund or the approval of a certain number of affordable housing units. There's a number of other milestones which included details regarding the types of units that could be counted, restrictions on the use of some of the funds, amendments to the city code, holding of annual housing workshops, which we will be holding in the second council meeting of January. So it's coming up, and we've had them annually since this settlement occurred. So this report, staff put together with the city attorney, which essentially identifies how the city has complied with those requirements and milestones, and we have determined that the city has met the funding requirement, which identified that a minimum of $2.2 million were to be paid into the trust fund over this timeline, and we have met and exceeded that requirement. In addition, we've also approved a number of affordable housing units, and so the combination of the payment of the funds and the approval of the units resulted in a determination by staff that we have satisfied that agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone in the audience has any.
Well, are there any initial questions by members of the council? All right, let me open the public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak to this at public hearing? Mr. Bell?
You have to go up there.
Tom Belt, 1520 Hillview. Well, I just didn't read the report, so I was just curious about more information on it. You have answered some of the questions I had. The city was sued, though, is this correct? And this was as a result of an error that the city made? I would be interested to know what error was made and what the responsibility was that we were.
No.
Is that possible to understand?
It goes back a very long time at this point.
I'm happy to address that briefly. It's in the staff report. I go through very briefly the history of this. What really was, I think, the factor that prompted the lawsuit was the evacuation around Thanksgiving time in 2011 of families who were living at 1105 Pope Street, in addition to that, the petitioners in the case, or the plaintiffs in the case, who were a combination of those former tenants at 1105 Pope, as well as some institutional and advocacy plaintiffs, were that action by the city, which was a code enforcement action, in evicting those tenants, along with other actions that were asserted to be hostile to the development of affordable housing, constituted housing discrimination under state and federal law. And I set forth in the staff report what the 4 central claims were. I'm happy to make a copy of the lawsuit available to you if you'd like to review it. But basically, they were that the city had disbanded its former housing committee, that the city had created an atmosphere in the community of hostility to the development of affordable housing, and that the city had also in some ways advocated against certain specific developments. The city denied all of those claims. And then ultimately, after a long period of time of combined discovery and litigation activities, the parties entered into settlement negotiations, and it became apparent pretty quickly that there were a lot of shared interests between both the plaintiffs and the city in terms of the development of affordable housing. And so those negotiations really became a long effort to explore ways that both sides could achieve what they were hoping would lead to the promotion of the development of affordable housing. Just correcting a small point, the city was not required by the settlement agreement to approve or construct any affordable housing. It was recognized explicitly in the agreement that that's really a private market process, which the city doesn't control largely. Rather, the agreement, the main parts of the agreement, which imposed monetary obligations on the city, were conditioned on whether the city had approved certain affordable housing by certain benchmark dates. And it was always agreed, and it's agreed in the, it's set forth in the agreement, that while the city is not required to approve any affordable housing, if it had not by certain specified dates, then the city would, as an alternative, fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to certain levels. What the agreement recognizes is that these funding benchmarks provided minimums. They provided minimums that if certain benchmark affordable housing units had not been approved, certain payments would be made. But it was also envisioned in the agreement and specified that these were floors, not ceilings, and that the city could, in fact, use other sources to fund in excess of what the agreement required. And that's what the staff report really goes through and documents, is that the city far exceeded. It turned out that development activity in the city generated affordable housing impact fees in amounts that far exceeded the amounts we were required to contribute under the agreement. And for that reason, we're well ahead of our pace, and as Mr. Hausch has said, we've satisfied those obligations already.
So if I can make one quick conclusionary statement, the monies that the city had to come up with will be going into affordable housing. Is that what I understand?
So under the agreement, the floor money, the minimums that we are required to dedicate, all go into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That is, by statute, under the city's ordinance, limited to affordable housing purposes. So yes, it can only be, it's no longer general fund money. This is, and most of it never was. It's all money that is earmarked solely for affordable housing purposes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, any further council discussion? Is there a motion to approve item 8.4?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor White?
Yes.
Councilmember Ellsworth?
Yes.
Coberstein?
Yes.
Doring?
Yes.
Mayor Galbraith?
Yes. Next item that was pulled, I think, is 8.6, dealing with the parking regulations on the south side of Pine Street between Main Street and Oak Avenue.
Yes, this is Public Works. The Rianda House originally reached out to the city manager about almost a year ago now with regard to updating some all-day parking stalls on the south side of Pine Street. And when they realized that a lot of the users were folks that worked in the businesses there and around the corner when they already have off-site parking available, which limited the availability for those using the offices and or the medical offices to actually get in and park there. And in addition, there was a loading zone parked midway up the street from Oak instead of being on the end of the street, making it easier accessible for the Magnolia Room and their uses there. So we've been kind of going back and forth between the fire department and Public Works and Rianda House on some of the parking configurations, because with this change required some additional red zone curbs because the fire standpipe midway down the block that was not addressed when the Baldwin building was established, which limits the use for fire department to respond and connect when they have to jump over cars to get to it. So we revisited it, and we're now back to requesting approval for this item to make these striping zones happen, and also to clean up the yellow zone resolution, which had some old language pertaining to South Crane, which we addressed at meeting 2 weeks ago for the primary school in South Crane. And as we're coming up with these resolution updates, realizing there was additional resolutions for yellow zones. So I think it brings us up to date on everything here.
All right. Any initial council comment? Any public comment with respect to this? Spencer?
I'm Julie Spencer, Director at Rianda House, and thank you very much for bringing it to Council's attention. It's not just Rianda House, it's also Morrison's Mortuary, the resident or the owners of the Baldwin building, as well as the Magnolia Room. Seems like a great idea to shift as you said so well, the cars that are now taking up parking stalls all day where they actually have parking designated for them, not too far away. And so it would just ease everybody's flow and be able to have more obtainable parking. So so thank you for your consideration on that. Thank you. You have any questions for me based on that area? Okay.
No.
I'm Anthony McKelly. I just have one small question. With the red zone, I guess you're going to do on the corner of Main, you talked about doing a red zone and moving the yellow zone. Overall, is there going to be more parking or less parking for regular people to park?
As stated in the report, it might substantiate to one lost parking space.
You're going to lose a parking space by doing this. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further public comment? All right, I'll close public comment. Any further council discussion? Is there a motion to approve item 8.6?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ellsworth,
Yes.
Vice Mayor White,
Yes.
Councilmember Koberstein,
Yes.
Councilmember Doring,
Yes.
Mayor Galbraith.
Yes. That takes us to 8.7, which is the second reading of the ordinance relating to mobile home park rent stabilization. Mr. Prestwich, do you want to speak to that briefly?
Don't really have a report other than this is the same item that was brought to you at the prior meeting. We've made a few minor edits, and we have DEPA with Burke Williams Sorensen available tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any comments to make at this point in time?
I guess our question is what are the questions of the audience?
Well, okay, let me open the public hearing then. That might be the best way to go. Is there anybody that wishes to comment at public hearing on this? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. I pulled it because I do think Vineyard Valley deserves a vote out of the council, and that I've opposed it in the past, continue to oppose it. But if it were on consent, it could be read as supporting it. That was the problem. So let's have a roll call. I'll invite a motion from those in favor of the ordinance.
Could we have a little discussion since we
Sure.
pulled it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I would just direct people, since I have the opportunity, to the latest issue of the Star. There have been several letters written about rent stabilization, and Councilmember Doring and I were given the opportunity to respond to them and try to provide some factual corrections to perhaps some misunderstandings, including the genesis of this, which goes back at least until 2014, when there were campaign events at Vineyard Valley, and candidates at that time were requested to bring an item like this to the council. So I feel there's a big misunderstanding about this being a recent stealth operation, which it really was not, and I would hope that people would take the time to read that reply.
Any further council comment at this point? I would ask, and I'll give it to the city clerk, that the letter that we all received from Suzanne James be made part of the record. I didn't see it attached here, but I'll give it to you after the meeting. So at this point, if there's no further council comment, I would invite a motion by one of the council members that favors the resolution.
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Doring?
Yes.
Coberstein?
Yes.
Ellsworth?
Yes.
Vice Mayor White?
No.
Mayor Galbraith?
Oh. Okay. That takes us to new business, I think. All right. First item on new business is quarterly grant report, 10.1. Ms. Kellogg?
Yes. Not nervous.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This presentation highlights the grant activity for first quarter fiscal year 2019. Grants not mentioned in this presentation did not have activity during this period. The first slide highlights our newly awarded grants. There's a slight change to this slide here. The total project cost listed in the printed agenda was $150,000. It's been amended to $225,000. The city was approved for an allocation of Transportation Development Act funds in the amount of $75,000. This will be used for capital project R19-02, which will construct sidewalk in order to close a pedestrian gap that currently exists on the south side of Hunt Avenue. The project was originally approved for the amount of $150,000. The grant will now allow for an additional $75,000 in expenses to extend improvements to Church Street. This next slide highlights our pending grant applications. The first grant listed is the hazard mitigation grant that we applied for in order to purchase